Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're tracking a massive, and I mean absolutely massive cultural shift. We're talking about the journey from the dying monoculture of mass television. Back when millions of people experienced the exact same musical moment at the exact same time, to the rise of hyper-specialized, deeply dedicated niche audiences. It's a fascinating story about how we find music, how we consume art, and how the platforms that deliver those experiences are fundamentally changing right beneath our feet.
To get us started, I want you to consider a pretty harsh reality of today's entertainment landscape. The era of the late-night TV music breakout is dying. It used to be that a single performance on a late-night talk show could literally launch an entire career overnight. But as those traditional launch pads just kind of disappear, it leaves us with this huge lingering question. If people aren't tuning in to late-night TV anymore, where exactly did the audiences go? Where's the live music ecosystem actually thriving today?
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the ultimate music stage, the monoculture kingmaker.
To really grasp this kingmaker era, you have to look at the incredibly calculated criteria that a cultural juggernaut like Saturday Night Live uses to crown the next big artist. SNL isn't just picking names out of a hat, right? They're orchestrating major cultural moments. Their producers, including Lorne Michaels, balance this really complex equation. They're constantly monitoring current trends to catch artists who are going viral. They look at an artist's history, bringing in those established legends who shaped the industry. But crucially, they're also focusing on new talent, officially crowning someone as the next big thing. And of course, they sync up with album promotions to maximize commercial impact. Being chosen through this rigorous process meant, and honestly still means, reaching millions of viewers in a single broadcast.
The stakes during this golden era were just incredibly high. Take this quote from William Cashin of the band Future Islands, recalling their legendary 2014 breakout performance on Late Night with David Letterman. They were an indie band, and they suddenly became stars literally overnight. After that one televised performance, festivals that had previously rejected them, suddenly they came calling. That was the absolute power of the monoculture, an intimate, high-stakes setting that functioned quite literally as a magic wand for an artist's career.
Which brings us to Section 2, the late-night decline, from golden age to budget cuts.
The sheer volume of what we're losing here is just staggering. According to data analysis between the years 2011 and 2013, the late-night television ecosystem at its absolute peak was booking over 800 musical performances annually. 800. That was 800 distinct opportunities every single year for bands to find their mainstream audience.
So the crucial point here is this devastating drop. Fast forward to 2023 and, wow, the total number of late-night musical bookings barely crested the 200 mark. That is a massive downward spiral. Shows that once averaged 8 musical guests a month have dramatically scaled back. We're not just talking about a slight dip. It's a structural collapse of the format, accelerated by industry strikes, shifting viewing habits, and, frankly, the end of certain iconic programs altogether.
And honestly, perhaps nothing symbolizes this retreat more than what happened in 2024. Late Night with Seth Meyers actually lost its Fred Armisen-led house band, the AG Band, entirely due to budget cuts. A show that was once a super reliable launchpad simply ceased booking musical guests for months. Networks are actively pulling away from live instrumentation just to save money.
Let's move on to Section 3, surviving the budget cuts, the haves and have-nots.
This situation creates a very clear picture of the haves versus the have-nots in late-night television today. Jimmy Fallon is still championing music, sitting pretty with 139 acts. Meanwhile, Stephen Colbert, who, remember, inherited a show from David Letterman, who used to book over 150 acts a year, is down to just 50. And Seth Meyers, as we just talked about, sits at 0. In fact, over the last 15 years, just 2 specific shows, Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, have essentially held the entire late-night music ecosystem together. Together, they account for roughly 50% of all late-night musical performances. The platforms for artists haven't just shrunk, they've bottlenecked. They've narrowed down into a very, very small set of remaining champions.
All right, Section 4, fragmented audiences take over, the end of variety.
As music studies scholar Alexandra Vesey notes, the late-night variety show is a relic of a monoculture long gone. Today's pop stars, they aren't playing to a single, unified TV audience anymore. Instead, they're playing to hundreds, maybe thousands, of fragmented, hyper-specific internet audiences. People, especially younger demographics, just don't watch broadcast network television regularly. If they want to see a performance, they'll just watch the viral clip on social media the next morning, right?
There's a channel or a feed for every single specific interest now, which makes the traditional variety show feel pretty obsolete.
Which perfectly sets up our pivot question. If the late-night monoculture is totally dead, if that unified, massive TV audience is just gone, who is actually listening to live music out in the real world? How do deeply dedicated music audiences function today?
That brings us to Section 5, Who is actually listening? The Jazz Audience Case Study. To figure this out, we're going to use the National Endowment for the Arts' Jazz in America Who's Listening report to really ground our deep dive here. What's incredible about this data is that it tracks the roughly 10% of adult Americans, that's nearly 20 million people by the way, who actively attend live jazz events. This gives us a really perfect lens to examine what a specialized, non-monoculture audience actually looks like.
And the demographics are fascinating because they show us exactly how this non-monoculture crowd stands out. The jazz audience is highly educated, with nearly half being college grads. They tend to be affluent. Interestingly, the audience skews disproportionately male, at about 52 to 54%, which actually contrasts with other benchmark arts activities where women generally participate more. Plus, it's a highly diverse audience, with African Americans making up 16 to 20% of the audience compared to just 11% of the general population. And why does this matter? Well, it proves these aren't just random channel surfers. They are highly specific audiences actively seeking out a very particular experience.
But where the data gets truly revealing is when we look at attendance frequency. While the average jazz concert goer attends 2.9 events a year, which, fun fact, is higher than classical music or theater, the breakdown tells a completely different story. 44% only go once a year. Another 26% go twice. That means that incredibly high 2.9 average, it's being driven by a tiny, fiercely dedicated fraction of superfans who go 3 or more times. They are literally keeping the live ecosystem alive through sheer, repeated devotion.
Let's head into our final section. Section 6, Authenticity versus Accessibility, Navigating the Niche.
This brings us to a really crucial dichotomy in modern music consumption, the tension between authenticity and accessibility. According to the NEA report's framework, authenticity invests its authority in traditions of creativity. It's about being faithful to an original spirit, an art form that requires commitment and often education from its listeners. Accessibility, on the flip side, is totally market-driven. It actively seeks the center of the marketplace to find and please the present-day audience. Now, in the past, a massive TV appearance was the ultimate tool for accessibility. But today, with that stage shrinking, artists often have to make a tough choice. Do they chase shifting, fragmented pop trends? Or do they cultivate a deep, authentic tradition that a specific niche audience will return to over and over again?
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to ponder. As the massive platforms of the monoculture fade into history, is the future of music really about trying to reach everyone, everywhere, all at once? Or is the true path to a sustainable artistic career found in finding your specific niche and reaching them deeply over and over again? It's a huge question for the future of art. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.